Hi guys, this is Stormouse03, and this is my analysis of Season 4, Episode 12 of Person of Interest, entitled Control, Alt, Delete. There will be spoilers, so just keep that in mind if you haven't watched it yet. So let's get right into it, guys. This episode was directly following the events of the previous episode, but they didn't do it in the way that you might expect. I kind of thought that we would get to see the team broken and mourning, picking up the pieces and trying to figure out what to do next. But we didn't see that. Instead, the episode focused largely on the character Control for pretty much the entire first half of the episode, and largely in the last half as well. And you know what? I kind of think that was a good choice. We got to see what's going on inside the hive, basically. What's happening for all those other operatives who've sided with Samaritan, thinking that it's going to be an even better version of what the machine was for them before. And we see that it isn't really all sunshine and roses in there. There's some clear unrest among at least some of the ranks. You can see that right away that Control is really skeptical of Samaritan. She knows that she isn't being given all of the information, and that makes her nervous. Because you can't control a situation if you don't know all the variables. It's obvious that she's not pleased with not being told where Samaritan is getting its information from, and she is pissed when Travers tells her that she can't have access to the information on the suspected terrorist's laptop. You know, what struck me more than anything during the mission to take down the terrorist cell was how fishy everything smelled. It seemed pretty obvious from the start that Samaritan was manipulating the government for its own purpose. It just wasn't really clear what that purpose was. They were given enough information to make it seem reasonable to suspect that these 4 guys might be terrorists, but something just wasn't adding up. Reflecting on it now, I think this scene is meant to show us just how scary it is to think about eliminating people based on the suspicion that they might do something. It's an extremely gray area, and I think the show has done a great job so far of showing us that gray. It isn't necessarily portrayed as evil, because the people who are eliminating threats are doing so because they believe that they are protecting people. You can tell when Control is telling her boss about how the people that she's killed were terrorists and how that keeps us safe, that she really believes that, or at least she's convinced herself that that's true. Because if it isn't true, then what does that make her? A monster, right? So these people think that they're doing good. And I'm going to ask you guys to forgive me for making a video game reference when I'm talking about a TV show, but I've been playing Assassin's Creed recently, and it really struck me how similar these people are to the Templars in that series. They believe that the only way to bring peace to the world is to bring order to the world, and that order is only possible if the right people are in absolute control of everything that's happening. And in this mindset, it's very ends justify the means. And so if you have to kill people before they've even done anything wrong, then so be it. Never mind the fact that no computer can predict with 100% certainty what people will do. Computers work on probability, as we saw in the previous episode. Now, they can take into account many different variables, and they can make predictions on what scenario is most likely, but they can't see the future. The human mind is full of contradictions and intangibles, and things that just can't be quantified. I mean, what about the person who brings a gun to work, but at the last minute decides that they don't actually want to shoot their boss. They don't want to go through with that plan because maybe they saw a picture on their boss's desk of their kids. You know, I once heard about a man who committed suicide, and after he had died, they found a note in his apartment that he had written before he went through with it. And in that note, he said that he was going to go through his day just like normal, and that, he planned to kill himself at the end of the day. But he said that if just one person smiles at me today, I won't kill myself. And despite how sad that story is, how do you quantify something like that? There's so much of human behavior is based on things that I don't think can necessarily be predicted the way that a computer would predict them. And so to me, the idea that these people are being killed on the suspicion that they might do something in the future, that sounds really, really scary. And especially if the computer that makes the decisions doesn't reveal how it's making those determinations about who is a threat and how much of a threat and why. And so this is, I think, the core moral dilemma that's presented to us here, and it's in your face in a way that it often is not in some of these episodes. So that it was cool that they brought that to the forefront here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Control, the character, for a second. First of all, how cool was it that she voiced the intro sequence instead of Finch? That immediately told us that we were not going to get our standard episode, and that we were going to be looking at things from a different perspective for a little bit. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch. So about Control, I'm still not quite sure what to make of her. At times it seems like she really believes that she's doing good, and I wonder if she sees herself as that classic person in the shadows, doing the things that need to be done to keep the unknowing populace safe in their beds at night. That idea that I'm the person willing to get my hands dirty because I'm someone who can make those kinds of hard choices and do the things that other people can't. I wonder if that's how she sees herself. But to me, I think that isn't the whole truth. As her codename Control suggests, I think that part of her likes to have that control. She has a little bit of a narcissist feel to her that suggests to me that when she's in control, she feels powerful. And above all, when she's in control, she doesn't have to feel helpless. She doesn't have to feel like things are happening that I don't have any say in. That things are happening to me instead of I am exerting some measure of control on my environment. And I think that her worst fear is probably that she is just a pawn and really doesn't have any power at all. And so that's why I think she goes to such lengths during this episode to assure herself that she can still pull the strings. Now, you see her balk at the suggestion that Samaritan's operatives are above her and that she doesn't know things and can't know everything. And the entire time, it just really feels like she's posturing to them, to the Samaritan operatives, to her boss, to everyone. It feels like this big posturing, while in the background she's scrambling around trying to figure out whether or not she's being lied to. And so she keeps up this mask the whole time, and this is even when she's being tortured by Root, who, is a pretty scary person in general, but especially when she is angry and feels like she doesn't have anything to lose. And so there's this mask of self-righteousness there, of I'm not going to give in to you because I'm right and you're wrong, and she wouldn't dare let anyone know that she's not the one in charge of everything. So you get to see the mask slip just a little bit at the end when she's tracked down the final suspected terrorist, when he tells her what I assume is the truth. and asks her whether she can consider just for a second the possibility that she's been lied to. And now, really props to Cameron Manheim here, the actress who plays Control, because her facial expression here is just so great. When he asks her that, can you consider the possibility that you're being lied to? You can see all of these things play on her face in just a split second. What if I'm being lied to? There seems to be a lot of evidence to point to that, and they're not telling me everything, that's for sure. But if that's the case, then how long have I been killing innocent people? Am I going to kill one more innocent person right now? Will Samaritan know if I don't? And if I don't kill this man like Samaritan wants, what will happen to me? And you see all of this stuff go through her mind, in a split second, and you can see it on her face, and then she makes that choice to go ahead and kill him, no matter what doubts she has, whether that's because she's trying to convince herself that, no, he really is a terrorist, or whether she's taking into account that fact that if I don't play along with what Samaritan wants me to do, then what's going to happen to me? I'm not sure, but I like to think it's a little bit of both. So then she goes back to her boss and reports that she's killed 854 people to protect the U.S., and that frightens me because how many of those people are just like this guy? And I think she's starting to get maybe afraid of that too. So you see that the seed of doubt has been planted and is still there as she goes at the end to check out Finch's story about the stock exchange, and what she finds is a very clean building and some fresh paint. So I think that this is really going to have implications for later on down the road. Is Control going to be an ally for Team Machine? I don't know, but I do know that she will be trying to work from within to gain her power back from Samaritan, and that will likely put her in a position that will be very dangerous for Samaritan. And we all know how Samaritan deals with threats. But the catch here is that she knows that too. And so I can only imagine what that dance is going to actually play out to look like. So very, very interesting stuff going on there. All right, so my next big thought on this episode is that I really loved how they tied back in some of the plots from previous episodes. We saw the agents that let Shaw go a few episodes ago, and it's noteworthy that Grice may be another potential ally within the organization. We also saw the RPG that the team recovered from a gang a while back, and let's face it, I love a good rocket launcher scene, so that was awesome. We also got a glimpse of how Nautilus is factoring into the picture. That was a nice twist that I did not see coming. The entire time I was watching this episode, I was wondering why Samaritan really wanted these guys dead, and it seems like it was really just after this one guy who it had tricked through the whole Nautilus scheme into writing code, and that the other three guys were probably just collateral damage because they went with the convenient terrorist story that Samaritan built around this guy. And so that now begs the question, are we going to see the girl who we saw join Samaritan earlier, who won the little Nautilus game? Or is she also dead? I think it would be kind of cool if she showed up at some point in some capacity, either as a friend or foe, because there's still a lot we don't know about this whole Nautilus program and the people that Samaritan is recruiting. What kind of code are they writing? Why did Samaritan need to eliminate them? My guess is because it seems like, everybody's only given a piece of the information, but if someone on Team Machine were able to get enough of those pieces and put them together, that could be a significant threat. And so that is probably why Samaritan decided that they needed to die, because Samaritan does not leave potential threats to its system. So all of that is pretty intriguing, and I'm interested to see where they go with it. And it was really nice to see a lot of those threads from previous episodes show up again. Next, I just want to mention the creepy kid. He wasn't really in this episode a whole lot, and it seems like his presence here was more just setting things up for future episodes. But it's noteworthy that Samaritan is wanting to speak directly to the president, and I'm wondering to what end. It's clear at this point that Samaritan is very similar to Control in that it needs to be the puppet master, the one who makes all the decisions, and that it does this through fear. It has the, what will you do if I don't protect you? What will you do if I'm not on your side? Those kinds of scare tactics are what it uses. And if it does gain or can gain control of the president, in theory, it would have the ability to do whatever it wants. It would have a lot more power than it does even now. And so we'll see where that goes. So let's talk about Team Machine. I like how we were shown what they were doing through the news clips in the first half. I thought that was pretty neat. My biggest positive for them in this episode is that although we didn't get to see any heavy-handed dialogue about how they're so distraught over Shaw's maybe death, we get to see it in their actions. And I love that they chose to show us how they're hurting rather than tell us how they're hurting. So we see Reese, and he's out T-boning cars and shooting kneecaps and firing rockets while he's still wounded. And he's employing his trademark ability to make himself numb and stoic. And you just get a tiny little flavor of what he might be feeling underneath. And so I thought that was well done. Finch seems to be trying to put on a brave face for his friends, but he pretty obviously believes that Shaw is already dead, as Control even points out in the episode. So I think that's pretty clear where he stands. And then poor little Root is angry and really clutching tightly onto Hope. She really has that look of someone who knows that it's really likely that the person that they love is dead, but she just can't let herself grieve yet, because if she starts to allow herself to feel that pain, then she won't be able to do what she needs to do. I like how she's still clearly Root, like her core character is still there, and she even has her usual quips and one-liners, but there isn't that playfulness and joy that's usually behind them. Instead, it's replaced with this sense of grief and pain and anger and fear, and I think that's all really very well done. And it makes sense that we see her as being the most affected by all of this that's going on. So I think nice job with everybody there. My final thought on this episode is I just kept thinking everybody on Team Samaritan seems so friggin' self-assured. They're cocky and behaving like they are so superior to everyone else, that they're so many steps ahead that no one could even think about stopping them. And I just hate them. That kind of attitude just makes them all really despicable. Everybody hates someone who wears that permanent smug grin on their face. You just want to smack it off of them. And I found myself thinking about that in this episode, like why everybody is like that. And I feel like it has to be connected to that speech that Elias gave Dominic back a few episodes ago, when Dominic and the Brotherhood believed that they'd won, and we're going to kill Elias, and Elias tells him that his flaw is hubris. And for whatever reason, it just clicked in my head during this episode that everything about Samaritan just screams hubris. And I would be willing to bet my hat that we are going to get a callback to that theme later this season, and that we are going to see Samaritan's hubris be its flaw. And the way that hopefully our heroes in Team Machine are going to be able to strike back at Samaritan. So that's just my thought. And those were really my thoughts for this episode, guys. So please let me know what you thought. I enjoyed this episode. It wasn't quite as heavy as the previous episode, but I still thought that it was really solid, and can't wait to see how things turn out. So let me know what you think is going to happen. If you have any other thoughts about this particular episode, I would love to discuss them with you in the comments below. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next episode.